Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about child in need of care and protection under Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, amended in 2021. I am Dr. Suresh Bada, Professor of Psychiatry, working at NIMANS, Bangalore. Before I start my presentation, I would like to place this disclaimer. This presentation is for academic and training purpose only, not for legal opinion. For legal opinion, please do contact an advocate. Conflict of interest? None. In this video, I am going to discuss about child in need of care and protection. What does it mean under the Juvenile Justice Act? And how Child Welfare Committee is formed? And what are the procedures under the Child Welfare Committee has to perform its duties, roles and responsibility of Child Welfare Committee. This video is targeted to psychiatrists, registered medical practitioners, nurses, advocates, Juvenile Justice Board members, Child Welfare Committee and their members, mental health professionals, professionals working under Ministry of Women and Child Development, and personnels working under child care institutions. Let's discuss about this. The child in need of care and protection. What does it mean under this legislation? The child in need of care and protection has been clearly defined under the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, amended in 2021. As per this legislation, if a child is homeless, begging, living on street, will be considered as child in need of care and protection. Further, if a child is orphan and there is no one ready to take care of this child. Further, if a child is working in contravention of labor law, then also it will be considered a child who requires need of protection and care. Homeless, mentally ill, disabled child, and nobody is there to take care of them. And also, if a child is residing with a person, the person may be a family member, a guardian, a legal guardian, or a foster person who is being injuring child or abused the child or exploited the child or neglected the child, or if he has threatened a child to kill or else he has killed a child. So those children who are under those person will also be considered as child in need of care and protection. So these are the important points where the child requires the care and protection has been defined. Further, it also says that if the person who is taking care of the child is incapacitated, like person with mental illness, dementia, or else he has head injury and is unable to take care of the child. Further, if a child is missing from the family or else runaway child and their family is not traced, those children also will be considered as a child who is in need of care and protection. Further, if a child has been abused or exploited for sexual purposes, again, they come under this definition. Who is likely to be inducted for drug abuse or drug trafficking? And as you know, many people will use the children for drug trafficking. Not only to do that, they will use the child for the purpose of addiction. That means once the child becomes addicted to this drug, they will use them as a trafficker. That means if I'll be able to give this drug, if you are able to deliver this drug to Mr. X. So those children also will be considered as child in need of care and protection. Or else a child who is involved in armed conflict, civil unrest, or else in natural calamity like disaster. Further, if a child is in imminent risk of getting married before the age of whatever the requirement is, and those children also will be considered as child in need of care and protection. That means this law is very, very clear. Who are the children who need to be provided care and protection has been clearly defined. So as you know, Juvenile Justice Act talks about 8 important points. A child who is in conflict with law, the child who requires care and protection, rehabilitation and reintegration of the child, adoption of the child, offenses against the child, and miscellaneous. So here, in this video, I'm going to discuss about a child who is in need of care and protection. That means I'll be discussing about the Child Welfare Committee who is looking after the child who is in need of care and protection under this legislation and the procedures which have been clearly dictated under this legislation. So this has been dictated under Chapter 5 and 6. The Chapter 5 talks about Child Welfare Committee, how it is formed, what are the roles and responsibilities, and it has been dictated from Section 27 to 30. Chapter 6 talks about procedures in relation to child in need of care and protection. That means the procedure how the Child Welfare Committee will function. That has been dictated under Section 31 to Section 38. Let's discuss about Child Welfare Committee, which is formed under Section 27 of the Juvenile Justice Act of 2015, amended in 2021. It has 5 people, 1 chairperson, 4 members, and each one of them needs to have certain qualification, which has been clearly dictated under this legislation. It clearly says the members should have a graduation in social work, health, education, or welfare activities of children for at least 7 years experience. That should be there, or degree in child psychology or psychiatry or law or social work or sociology or human development. That is the requirement to become the member of Child Welfare Committee. Further, it also says 1 member should be a woman and 1 expert matter concerning to the children should be appointed. And each person who is appointed will be there for 3 years. And this CWC review will occur by the district magistrate. Further, as soon as the Child Welfare Committee is formed, they should undergo training. That is very essential. Without undergoing training, they will not know what are the requirements, how the child has to be dealt in front of Child Welfare Committee. Further, the District Child Protection Unit will provide human resources support to Child Welfare Committee. Further, the disqualification of the members also has been clearly told. If they misuse the power, if they are convicted by the court, or if they are absent at least 3 consecutive months without any explanation, that means they can be removed from the Child Welfare Committee. And this very important is mandatory training has to be kept in mind. Without training, they will not be able to function as a Child Welfare Committee members. Further, what is the power of this committee? Is it just a committee? No, the legislation is very clear. The committee shall function as a bench and shall have the power confirmed by the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 as a metropolitan magistrate, or as the case may be, judicial magistrate of first class. That means this bench of 5 people will be given the same power of metropolitan magistrate. If a Child Welfare Committee summons you, don't say I will not come. It is just a committee. No, it has the power of a metropolitan magistrate. If they are calling you, you need to go. That means it is very powerful, similar to a court. Section 28 talks about procedure in relation to Child Welfare Committee. Here, the Child Welfare Committee formed under Section 28 can be one at least to a district. If there are more cases, the state government can form more Child Welfare Committee in a district. And they need to meet at least 20 days in a month. That means they have to sit at least 20 times. And they have a duty to inspect all child care institutions. Further, child can be produced in front of a individual member of the CWC if the committee is not sitting, or else it can be produced in front of the Child Welfare Committee who requires care and protection. Further, whenever a decision is taken regarding a child, the decision will be by majority. And whenever the final disposal of the case is done, 3 members should be there, because out of 5, minimum 3 should be there. That is the mandate requirement as per the legislation. Further, the committee shall have the authority to dispose the case with regard to care, protection, treatment, development, and rehabilitation of the children in need of care and protection. Further, as well as to provide the basic needs and protection. Please understand, this is a very essential component. The whole spirit of care and protection of a child and the responsibility of the CWC is mentioned here. The child who requires care, who requires protection, who requires treatment, development, and rehabilitation, those are the children will be addressed by CWC. And also, they have a responsibility to provide basic needs and protection. That is the mandate of this legislation. Section 30 talks about functions and responsibility of this committee. The committee is very clear as per the legislation. That means the child in need of care and protection, those cases, the cognizance will be taken. The child will be received by the CWC. They will conduct the inquiry about the need of protection, under what circumstances the child is brought, what circumstances led to this child who requires care and protection, and the CWC will order for filing a social investigation report by a child welfare police officer or else a probationer officer, or a district child probation protection unit, or any non-governmental organization can do social investigation report and submit in front of the child welfare committee. Further, the CWC can place the child in foster care for time being, or else it can be placed in a child care institutions. At the same time, when the child is placed, at least the child welfare committee should do twice in a month inspection of those institutions, and also to plan for rehabilitation and restoration of those children so that they can be reintegrated into the society. Further, restoration of the abandoned or lost children to their families. That means if a child is missing and somewhere else it is got, the child welfare committee has to make sure the child is sent back to the family. That means missing child restoration to the family has to be done. Further, if there is nobody is there to take care of the child, or the child is an orphan, or it is abandoned and surrendered child, the child welfare committee will legally free for adoption will be declared after the required inquiry conducted by the CWC. That means the adoption related arrangements have been done under this legislation. I'll be doing a separate video on the adoption. So please subscribe to my channel. That means the CWC committee now also has a responsibility regarding adoption, regarding the orphan child, abandoned child, or surrendered child. Further, if the child rights violation has been done, or else if the child who requires care and protection, suo motu cognizance can be taken by the CWC. Further, if a child is abused or sexually abused, for their rehabilitation, the JJ board or the POCSO court can send that child to this CWC. Further, the CWC has a very important activity of coordinating with other departments like education department, labor department, women and child department, police, legal aid, and so forth. That means this coordination in government is a big challenge for anybody, because one department will be working under certain framework. They will not be able to cross over the other department. And these gray area are the where the child welfare committee has to play an important role. Further, the child welfare committee will execute the deed of surrendered child. That means if some parents wants to surrender the child for adoption, that deed has to be executed in front of the child welfare committee. Moving to section 31, production before the committee. That means if a child has to be produced in front of the committee, what are the procedures? Any child in need of care and protection may be produced in before the committee. That means if any person, including a police, a doctor, a nurse, or a health professional, or a special juvenile police unit, or child welfare committee police officer, or else district juvenile police unit, whoever finds this child without any loss of time has to be produced in front of the CWC, that is child welfare committee, within 24 hours, excluding the time of journey. That means at the earliest, the child needs to be produced in front of the child welfare committee. Another important mandatory clause has been placed under this Juvenile Justice Act. That is section 32. That is mandatory reporting regarding a child found separated from the guardian. Here, if a child is been found wandering at large, orphans, missing child, if somebody comes to know that child is missing, the words are very clear. Mandatory reporting has been placed. Let's read about the whole clause. A child who appears or claims to be abandoned or lost, or a child who appears or claims to be orphan without family support, to be informed to the child welfare committee, or child line services, or special juvenile police unit, police, or district child protection unit, or child care institution. The information regarding a child shall be mandatory uploaded to a portal as a missing child, and it has been found in this such a place. That means every citizen has a responsibility to mandatorily report to these agencies. Further, offences and punishment for not reporting have been clearly told under section 33 and section 34. Section 33 says if you don't inform, punishment, and it is considered as an offense. It says if information regarding a child found separated from guardian is not given within a period of specified such section, then such act will be considered as an offense. And section 34 says any person who has committed such an offense not informing shall be liable for an imprisonment for 6 months or fine up to 10,000 rupees or both. That means Child Welfare Committee has been given a power for to give punishment, or telling that you will be going for 6 months because you are mandatorily has been given a obligation under this legislation to report this missing child as I have found and needs to be handed over to the Child Welfare Committee. Section 35 talks about surrender of a child. Here, if a parent or a guardian who wishes to surrender the child, they are unable to take care of the child. It may be because of physical reasons, because of emotional reasons, or social reasons. They will produce the child in front of the committee. The reasons, whatever may be, the parents may say, I am old, or else I have physical deformity, I will not be able to take care of this child, I have too many children, or else because of the emotional reason, the person may have mental illness, or else they are because of economic reasons or social reasons, they are unable to take care. Such children will be produced by the parents telling that we are unable to take care, and they will surrender the child to the Child Welfare Committee. And after prescribed process of inquiry by the Child Welfare Committee, and also they need to do the counseling to the parents, telling that why are you giving the child for adoption? Why are you surrendering the child? Whether is there anything the Child Welfare Committee can assist the parents, and whether the sponsorship is required, whether there is assistance is required, whether the child requires education, with regard to that any assistance is required, those counseling will be done. And even after that, if the parents want to surrender the child, a deed will be executed in front of the Child Welfare Committee. After that, there is a 2-month cooling period to reconsider the decision by the parents. Once the parents, after 2 months, they say we don't want the child will be sent for adoption. After that, it will not be given back to the parents. Coming to section 36 about the inquiry. On production of a child in need of care and protection, what are the inquiry Child Welfare Committee will be doing? CWC will hold an inquiry to be completed within 4 months. They cannot do endless investigation, endless inquiry. It has to be completed in a 4 months time. And the Child Welfare Committee will order for social investigation report to be completed within 15 days by a social worker or a child welfare officer or a child welfare police officer. They need to do this social investigation report and submit in front of the Child Welfare Committee. Further, the children who are orphan, surrendered, or appear to be has been abandoned shall be placed in a specialized adoption agency by the Child Welfare Committee if the child is less than 6 years age. Or else the child can be placed in a children's home or to a fit facility or a person or a family or a foster family. Or else till a suitable means of rehabilitation are found for the child or till the child attains the age of 18 years. That means the Child Welfare Committee, based upon the inquiry, based upon the social investigation report and the child, whether it is surrendered and the deed has been given, it can send it to a special adoption agency or else children home, and whatever the Child Welfare Committee as per the law says, they have to follow that. Further, the committee also will submit a quarterly report to the district magistrate. These are our activities. These are the child who requires care and protection has been done. And the district magistrate will submit the report to the state government. Yes, he will review the report and he will forward it to the state government. The state government, considering the number of cases, may constitute many more Child Welfare Committee. Or else if the Child Welfare Committee is not functioning, there are too many pendency of cases. In such a scenario, the government can decide to disqualify such committee and form a new committees. They have given very clear mandate. You have to function or else the Child Welfare Committee will be disqualified. Under section 37, orders passed regarding a child in need of care and protection. That has been clearly been dealt. After an inquiry is considered, and after the inquiry will be conducted and a social investigation report, and based upon the wishes of the child, if the child is matured, following orders will be given by the Child Welfare Committee. That telling that the child requires need of care and protection, or else the child needs to be restored to the parents or guardians, or else placement of the child in a children's home or a fit facility or a specialized adoption agency should be placed, or else placement with a fit person for long-term care or a temporary care can be decided by the CWC. Foster care orders can be given. Legally free for adoption can be given by the Child Welfare Committee. Sponsorship orders. This is again where the Child Welfare Committee can say, yes, this family requires certain support, and the state government has to provide the support. It may be regarding, with regard to the child only, it may be regarding education, regarding rehabilitation. Those sponsorship orders will be given by the CWC. Immediate shelter for the required child, medical attention, psychiatric services, counseling services, occupational therapy, behavioral modification, skills training, legal aid, educational services, rehabilitation of the child, and other developmental activities as required, CWC will say. And if any other services are required, the Child Welfare Committee has the power to tell that. Further, moving to Section 38, procedure for declaring a child legally free for adoption. In case of an orphan or an abandoned child, CWC will make efforts to trace the parents. Whoever is the biological parents, they will try to trace and place the child back into the original environment. If a child is an orphan, abandoned, CWC will declare child is free for legally adoption. Within a period of 2 months from the date of production of the child for a child who is less than 2 years. That means within 2 months the CWC has to decide. If the child is more than 4 years or 2 years, then within 4 months the CWC has to take a decision. That means it is the 2 years is the limitation here. That means if the 2 years, less than 2 years, that means the CWC has to take a decision within 2 months. If the child is more than 2 years, within 4 months they have to take a decision. That leverage has been given because if the child is very small, is very young, within 2 years, it requires the parents' protection at the earliest. It may be adoption, it may be foster care. So the child welfare committee has to act very fast. It cannot delay further. That is what the spirit of this legislation. Further, in case of an orphan and abandoned child, no FIR will be registered against the biological parents for surrendering the child. If you do FIR, nobody will come and surrender the child. What will happen to those children? The children will be left at large in the society. They may become wandering kids, or else begging children on streets, and the children will be abused. Hence, the Child Welfare Committee has taken this proactive measure. No FIR will be placed for those parents who are surrendering the child. Further, the decision to declare an orphan or abandoned or a surrendered child as a legal free for adoption will be taken at least 3 members of the committee. That means 3 members of the committee should be there before this decision has to be taken. One person cannot take this decision. Minimum 3 out of the 5 members should be there to say, yes, the child is legally free for adoption. Why this free? That means no consideration will be taken by any person for giving for adoption or taking for adoption. That means it is free and it is legal. No money should be given to take the child because child is not a commodity to sell. That is the spirit of this legislation. Further, CWC shall inform the state agency and the authority regarding the number of children declared legally fit for adoption and number of cases pending for decision. That has to be updated by the CWC to the state agency and the authority. To conclude, my dear friends, Child Welfare Committee has been given an important mandate under this legislation. They need to look after the child in need of care and protection. That means they have a responsibility to see how these children are protected in the society. And also, the legislation talks about how the committee is formed, roles and responsibility of the committee, powers of the committee. Not only that, it has casted a huge responsibility on individuals, all the citizens of India, to mandatorily report regarding a child found separated from the parents or the guardians. And at the same time, CWC also has been given an important obligation for adoption of these children, telling that yes, this child is legally free for adoption. Those powers have been given. At the same time, one need to understand, Child Welfare Committee is not just a committee. It has been given a power of Metropolitan Magistrate, my dear friends. So, it is everyone's duty to protect our children, provide care for our children who are abandoned or who are orphan, or a child who is separated from the guardian. We need to report to the Child Welfare Committee or else Special Juvenile Police Unit. It is your responsibility, my responsibility, and everyone's responsibility. Thank you for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.